Welcome. Hi, Myron. Feedback there. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So, who have we got here? I saw Myron, you were on. And who else? Feel free to introduce yourself. And I would love to have a conversation tonight for the next 30 minutes or so. Let me go ahead and rotate this around so you can see me. There we go. Okay. All right. Hopefully that'll work. Move this up a little bit more. All right. All right, so we're going to cover some of the top career killers that I've seen. Last night's broadcast was my first one, so that was an interesting experience because I thought I'd maybe talk for about 15 minutes or so, and as it turns out, it was much longer than that. It was almost 50 minutes, almost an hour. But we're going to talk about the career killers. Let me get this adjusted a little bit better. Okay. So feel free, if this is your first time using Periscope, you can share this with friends that you have on Twitter and whatnot. So you swipe, if you have an iPhone, you can swipe to the right and then kind of scroll up and you'll be able to share it. You'll see a share button. You can also, good evening, Nicole. You can also do that with a Droid. You can share, I think it's you pull down to share this broadcast with others. So others that you know that are struggling with their careers, thank you for the heart. Others that are, I don't know who Nicole. So others that you are, thank you. Others that are might be interested for career assistance, feel free to share this with them. My goal is to do these broadcasts for the next few weeks. This is a trial. This is an experiment. I'm not a professional by any means in terms of broadcasting. However, I am I think that's what we call some trolls that we have. So in any event, so it's an experiment. So go with me on it. If you have questions or comments, I'll ask you throughout the broadcast. You can type them in, and I'll respond, and we'll have some fun here and see how this goes. So what I thought I'd talk about, and I talk about it in my book, I'm the author of Pipe Dreams, 7 Pipelines of Career Success, and I am also the founder of High Five Career Coaching. And currently I also work for a Fortune 500 company, and a lot of my job involves career coaching and facilitating succession planning in organizations. And what that is just helping to improve the bench strength, helping people move into potential future leadership roles in the organization. Well, welcome, Dave. So helping people move into future roles in the organization, and I develop a lot of teams, and I work with a lot of individuals and teams who are kind of derailing in some fashion and not achieving what they're wanting to achieve. And so Web Bakers, who's that? Is that Steve? Is that you, Steve? Awesome, yeah, go Buckeyes. So fellow Buckeyes, Steve and I went to high school together. So I go to Cleveland once in a while, where I grew up, and we connect every so often live. So good to see you on the call. Yeah, Brush Arcs, that was my high school. Charles F. Brush. So, um, so in any event, I've started this process over 20 years ago doing career coaching, and welcome. And so I'm sharing the benefit of my experiences, and again, they are my experiences, as well as I do a lot of reading as well. So some top career killers, we'll get started with them. And if you have some that you've noticed, feel free to type them in, like what you've noticed for yourself or for others that have derailed their careers. So, oh, hi, Alice. Welcome. So, so I would say the number one thing, and this is the company that I'm working in now, pretty large organization, as well as other places I've worked. It's more so for a mid-sized or large company, but being invisible. So and this is one of the things in my book, one of the myths that many people subscribe to is, if I work hard, keep my nose to the grindstone, do a good job, then I'll get noticed and I'll get tapped on the shoulder for that next great opportunity. And in reality, that just doesn't happen very often, maybe 10% of the time. The rest of the time is you need to be actively doing something to become more visible within your company. And, many people will say, well, my work should speak for itself, which is another myth, by the way. And unfortunately, your boss is pretty busy typically, and they're managing multiple people, and they have their own goals they're trying to achieve, their own things of that nature, and their own boss that they're trying to satisfy in terms of helping them. And so they're distracted, and so the best advocate for your career is you. And we oftentimes leave that up to our bosses to chart our career for us. And historically, it was a little bit more the case. People stayed in the same company for 20, 30 years. It's much less the case now. It's more the rarity now. And it's kind of a paternalistic approach to career management. Nowadays, it's really about taking charge of your own career. And one step in doing that is doing things that will help make other people more aware of who you are and what you can do, what you're capable of. And what I like to say to people in the classes that I teach and my coaching clients is, you don't want to be the company's best kept secret, that hidden gem. It's not doing you any favors, and it's certainly not doing the company a service in the long run, because you might have some talents to offer that they're just not aware of. And so there's a lot of ways that you can get that exposure just by volunteering for projects, for example. And if you guys have some examples of your own experience, go ahead and type them in. Love to make this two-way conversation here. So, what are some of your favorite ways that you've used in places you've worked to become a little more visible? And when I talk about being more visible, what I'm not talking about is bragging. I'm not talking about like pounding your chest, saying, "Hey, look at me! Look how great I am." That creates other problems, in all honesty. So I'm not advocating that. But what I am advocating is, building relationships, for example, any opportunities to build relationships. And, in the company I'm in now, there's a lot of committees for different things. There's a green team, and actually most places I've worked, there's been a green team. There's usually a diversity committee. If you're working for a small company or organization of some sort, you might have a volunteer thing for a special event, like a run or a race. A lot of mom and pop businesses and as well as large corporate environments do that. So those are some things to consider. So being invisible is one of the biggest career killers. So a second one that I see often enough, and used to be more guilty of this myself, and that's not asking for help. Not asking for help. And the problem with that is when you're struggling with something, for me personally, I always had the mindset, I always try to figure it out myself. Any of you have that? You want to figure it out yourself, and if you ask for help, it's maybe a sign of weakness. That's a common thing I hear from clients and individuals that I coach is if I do that, aren't I admitting that that I can't do my job? And the irony in this situation is, well, if you're struggling and you can't do it, what's the natural outcome of that if you don't ask for help? The natural outcome is, A, you'll do a poor quality job, and that's going to show. It's going to be too late to do anything about it. Or B, you're going to miss a deadline that you've committed to, or that's being expected of you. Or you're not going to get it done at all because you haven't figured out how, so you haven't delivered on that. And so what kind of effect will that have on your career outcome? Would you rather have that or ask for help? And, the other essence of it is, you may still pull through and figure things out, but think of all the stress and I call them the silent stewies. Silent sufferers. You don't want to be suffering silently, versus asking. And there's a lot of people you can ask for help. It doesn't have to be the boss. It could be a peer. There's different resources wherever you are to do that. Now, one caveat to that is if you are asking for help around, I'll get, clients will say, well, I get so frustrated. I've had someone ask me to help them like 5 times on the same thing. Which is an excellent point. What I'm not talking about is if you're asking for help on something that someone's explained to you a few times, have you been taking notes? Have you, been focused on that? If you're not learning from what people have been teaching you, then either A, maybe they're not a very good teacher, or B, you're not present, or C, you're just not wired to get it. It's just not your thing. It's not your strength. And in that case, you want to ask for help early enough, or at least have the conversation and say, you know what, this is beyond my capacity. I'm wondering if we might find some other alternatives. And so the earlier you do that, if you go to your boss early on, then you can do something about it, because it gives them more options. If you wait till the day before something's due, or when it's too late, their hands are kind of tied a little bit there. The options to reassign someone else to help out, either assign it to someone else, or to bring in someone else to work with you. Is there, or for them to lend their ideas. You lose that time frame. It is so small, and it puts them on the spot. And managers generally don't like surprises. They generally don't like surprises. So something to consider there. Let's see. So I would say, I'm just looking at, jotted down some notes here. So bruised relationships. It's a light way to put it. And maybe how many of you, maybe you've known, how many of you have known someone, just kind of send me a little note, someone who is as strong at a technical performer, maybe it's sales or engineering or whatever it may be. They're really strong at that, but they're really poor at relationships. They created a lot of conflict. People didn't really want to work with them. Maybe they took credit for things. I'll give you an example. So I mentioned earlier I facilitate some succession planning meetings with leaders. So we talk about potential, rising stars in the organization. And this one director was putting forward one of his employees, and one of the, say Director A, I'm going to protect their names, but the second, he's kind of putting forward someone, and then, someone around the table, another director around the table said, you know what, I had a different experience, with this individual. In fact, a lot of my employees have come and complained about this individual. They say that he takes credit for the work that they do. He doesn't respond to their emails, and if he does, it's not very timely. He doesn't compromise at all, and so they had a whole different experience of that. And another director chimed in too, said, it's been a few years, but I had a similar experience with this particular individual. And to be honest, this was news. This was news to the director that advocated for his employee. Apparently, this employee was good at influencing up, managing up, if you've heard that, which is a good skill. However, among his peers, he had a really bad reputation. And so what happened, Marcus, welcome. What happened is that the other managers mentioned that they said, we can't in good conscience advocate, we can't advocate for this person. Hey, Jonas. My son just walked in. So advocating for for this individual, because they said, he has some fences that he needs to mend first before. Has he received feedback about his style? Has he received feedback about his style? And you know what the director said? He said, well, no, because he didn't know about it. He didn't know it was an issue. And so that director had basically some homework, if you will, to provide feedback and, talk with this employee and say, here's what I heard. And, to get to the next level, you're going to need to, there's some shifts you're going to need to make. And, unfortunately, many managers will avoid those tough conversations. But in this case, the manager, did not follow through on it. But again, it does, especially when you move up higher in an organization, relationships are much more key. You're much less reliant on technical skills. And quite honestly, in this day and age, you can't do it all by yourself. If you have a small business like Dave, I know, Dave, you're a one-person shop, but I'm sure you even have help, right, through contractors or in some fashion, right? So it's very difficult to do things all by yourself. And so having key relationships is important. So that's another one there. Let's see. Oh, there's a few. I won't be able to get to them all the curriculum. Maybe I'll do a part two. I've got maybe about 10 more minutes or so. I can probably cover a couple. Do you guys have any questions? Feel free to type them out, or comments, experiences you've had. I'll respond to that. So I would say another one I would tie into that is we'll cover a couple more. So inflexibility, I would say, or lack of adaptability is a key. And oftentimes we get comfortable in our jobs, and even though the world is changing around us, either A, we don't notice, B, we don't care, or C, we recognize it, but we're just not comfortable making that change. Or maybe we don't even know how to make the change. And so, so some people have the approach, no, I am who I am, take me for who I am, this is, I've been successful to this point, I shouldn't need to change. And others will just kind of withdraw, kind of put the head in the sand and say, I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing and hope for the best. I had a client years ago. I used to support a group of IT related, an IT department, and one of the strategic living below the line. Tell me more about that, Steve. Tell me more about that. So one of the things that they were doing strategically was they said, you know what, we have all these software developers, these programmers who develop custom software for the company. Welcome, Jim Bob and Lenny, is it? Welcome. So again, my name is Mike Gelman, author of Pipe Dreams, 7 Pipelines of Career Success, and we are talking about some of the career killers, top career killers. And I've covered some so far about being invisible, not asking for help, and having bruised relationships, and yes, career killers, so derailers, things that can hurt your career, things that you do or say, or how you conduct your career that can hold you back from achieving your goals if you want a promotion or if you're trying to get that dream job, something of that. Okay, great. So inflexibility. So the IT department was making a strategic decision to start going with an external vendor to provide a lot of the software, and what they would do is they would reconfigure it to work with the system. So the need to have computer programmers, they wouldn't need as many anymore because they weren't going to be doing all that. They're going to get products off the shelf for the company. And oh, the painting behind me here. So this painting is an oil painting, and I don't know if I can show more of it here. And do you guys know where that is? Can you figure it out? Shouldn't be too difficult. It is of Venice, and I went there, gosh, my early 20s, a long time ago, and it was a fantastic trip. I didn't buy it there. I actually bought it in San Diego where I lived, but it reminded me of my trip to Venice and the canals, and I love to travel, and it was pretty awesome. So with regards to the IT department and the programmers, they had a choice, right? They're going to need to know a lot of new skills to survive and be successful and be relevant, quite honestly, to be relevant. And so when we're talking, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of programmers wouldn't be asked to program anymore. So now they were going to need the skill set of negotiating contracts, arranging contracts with vendors, holding them accountable to what they called service level agreements, so expectations of how they would, what the vendor would do for them, or what the product would do, the software product. They would need to know conflict resolution skills. So most programmers like working with data. You know, a lot of them aren't necessarily as comfortable dealing with people issues. That's not to say all of them are. Believe me, I know plenty that are very good at building relationships. So I don't mean to stereotype or whatnot, but in general, what I have found is that they like programming because there's a sense of just working that's total control over their environment. You know, they have a start and a finish. It's something tangible, working with their hands. So working with people isn't their top choice. And so they had a choice to be relevant and to learn it. And, you know, so those that said, okay, well, I might not like it, but I am 45. So, so one of the things that they had a choice was to, thank you, appreciate it. One of the things I had a choice of, or that they had a choice of, was learning something new and getting some training on some of those skills and jumping on board. So those that were most successful did that. Now, fortunately, it was a large enough organization where those who did not want to still wanted to program, their choice was, you can still program, but they're going to be on our legacy systems. The legacy systems being the systems that are basically going to be obsolete in 3 years, just like your iPhone 3, or iPhone 4, or iPhone 5, although I still have an iPhone 5. But it's on the small side. So again, who wants to work on that? Especially up and coming software developers, they want to work on the new stuff, social media stuff, all the cool stuff. So, yeah, you can create room for them, but, anyway, so that's what I mean by inflexibility. And the big thing for leadership, the big buzz among all the, Fortune 500, and if you're a small businesses do this really well, especially tech companies, but it's mom and pop businesses, is you can adapt on a dime. You can be flexible because you're small. Well, that's the thing. As an employee, to be valuable is, no matter how valuable you are today, you need to kind of be looking at the future horizon of what's going to be needed down the road and how do I position myself for that. And in the moment to be able to adapt, to move on to something else, and shift your skills or apply them in a new way. So adaptability. So I think I'll cover one more since we need to make dinner for tonight for my son and I. So what do I do for a living? I am a career coach, and I coach a lot of individuals as well as groups as well, and help people who want to change careers. And I also help people who are maybe even high performing, but they want to take things to the next level. Maybe they didn't get that promotion that they've wanted. They've gone after it a few times and they don't understand why they're not getting the promotion. Or maybe they feel like they're not using all their talents at work, and they're not sure how to have that tough conversation with their boss, something like that. Do I play video games? I play a few, not a whole lot. My son does most of the video game playing, but I do play some of the video games. When I was a kid, I played a lot. I had an Atari 2600. Anyone have an Atari 2600? So I'm going to ignore that one. But so in any event, where was I? So adaptability. Lost my train of thought there. So in any event, we will flexibility, adaptability. Oh, you're asking, someone had asked what I had done, but I'll talk about one more, and that will be making the boss look bad. Making the boss look bad. So this will be the final career killer that's discussed tonight. Maybe I'll cover some more tomorrow. When I can discuss another series of career killers tomorrow. But making the boss look bad, and that could be what I referenced earlier. If you don't ask for help early enough,